Hey Star Trek fans, welcome back to another video on all things reviewed, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now today I'm not going to actually do a review. This is going to be more of a do-it-yourself project, and I'm going to show you how to make one of these. This is a Star Trek Voyager DS9 first contact Combadge. It will be the 2370s version. So stick around and I'll show you how to make one of these things. Okay, so here we go. We've got all the essential items that I need to create a mold. Now I've already gone ahead and done the molds. I wasn't going to go into that because there's a lot of information on YouTube on how to do them. So with the mold kit I ended up getting 4 molds. So I've done a variety of different ones. I've done the Voyager 2370s and I've done the Star Trek The Next Generation 2360s model. So I got a total of 4 molds out of one kit. This is the kit that I use. This is the actual resin. So this is going to be a plastic resin. So it's amazing casting resin, and the one for making the molds is it's the same company. So it's actually going to say amazing casting mold. This is the mold from the Star Trek The Next Generation. This is the final result. And I've kind of dremeled out where the Velcro backing is going to go. I haven't quite finished the paint job on it. Still got to do some painting on the back and my black trim around there. This is the original Star Trek Voyager 2370s Combadge that I got from Roddenberry. It originally had a Velcro backing, and then I turned it into magnets. I preferred the magnets, that way the Velcro backing will just come off because it had the sticky back on it. So I went with Velcro. So this is a reproduction. So what I've done is I've used 2 different types of paints. We'll get into that later. This is the magnetic backing that I've put on. This is an earth magnet, so really super strong, holds on really good. So we'll get into all that a little bit later. So let's get on with the mold process. So your mold comes into 2 parts. One's a 2-part mixture. They need to be equals when you do your mixes. Make sure you have everything ready to go. You need a stopwatch to time the mixing time. Have something to stir your mix with, and a napkin. When I did my molds, I didn't have them kind of balanced right, so the final product, they came out kind of a little lopsided, so I have to prop them up just to kind of make them so they're level. So let's go ahead and do our mixture. So I put them both in the same time. Get yourself some little paper cups, because you need paper cups. These ones I just got at the dollar store. So yeah, just use those. Don't use styrofoam. That'll just burn right through it. So let's go ahead. So our mix time is going to be about 45 to 50 seconds for here. So I'm going to start my timer, and let's just start mixing this up. Now one thing that I found when I did these molds is on the edges, like on the front where the gold is, I'd have like little breaks in there. So what I do now, so far so good, is I'm only putting part of the mold in just to get those the trims in, and then I'll kind of smack it down and kind of bend the mold just to make sure that everything disperses through there evenly. So it's taken me about this many that you see here on the counter to get it right. Especially the paint job. The paint job has been the hardest. So here we go. So I'm going to start pouring my mold. And I got about a minute to pour this before it starts to harden. So I'll just kind of pat it down, kind of move the mold around just so it gets in there. And then I'm going to finish it up and just pour. And then the same thing for the next one. So I've put in about 1 teaspoon to do both molds, and that's all you need. If I'm doing one, I use 1 dram, and that's all on the measuring cups. So 1 teaspoon of each, so for a total of 2 teaspoons. And that gets you 2 Combadges. Probably maybe just go a little bit over just to try and get everything. Just so in case you don't want to run a little too short, because then if you run yourself a little too short, then your badges are going to be a little, they're going to be too thin. Let me see if I can try and find, here's an example of one. So here's, once again, here's the original. So, and here's a reproduction. So you can see, and that's just from being too thin. So, but you know what, when you're wearing it on your shirt, no one's really going to know the difference. So I do sell these, $15 each. If anybody's interested, just send me a message if you don't want, if you're not crafty like this, and I'll send you out one. So here, I'll take a look at this, so you can see how that's starting to turn white there, and that's the resin starting to harden. So we're going to set this on a timer. It's supposed to be 15 minutes. So we've already kind of talked kind of a minute and I forgot about it. So I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. And when that's done, we'll come back and we'll take them out and see how they turned out. Okay, so our 15 minutes plus a little bit is over, so let's crack these things open. So this one here, I noticed it didn't quite get, you can see on here, it didn't quite fill all the way up to the top. So that's sort of what I was saying, where you really gotta maybe add a little bit extra. So maybe 1 teaspoon in each side wasn't enough. So the resin doesn't stick to silicone, so nothing really sticks to silicone except for silicone. So because I'm only using 1 part, I don't have like 2 parts. Some people will do half and then kind of flip it over and do another mold, so you got a 2-part mold. This is just a 1 part, so you don't need a mold release agent, so it's really easy. So after 15 minutes it's still kind of going to be soft, so you can see it's kind of, it's sort of bending. So once I pull it out, I just put it down on the counter, kind of flatten it out, because it will harden after a few minutes. There's just some residue in the cup which added to these black marks on there, but nothing too bad. So on the edges there, I don't see any breaks in there, so this will be a good final product when done. So again, the second one, same thing. Pry it all apart. This one will be a little more thicker because we filled that one up right to the top. And just checked for any nicks in the trim, and we didn't. So I learned that after about quite a bit. Let's see if I can find one that's got one of those nicks in there. Yeah. So this one here, you can kind of see it right there. What I've tried doing now is I just use some model glue, and before I paint it, I put some model glue in there and let it harden up, and then I'll just soft sand it and then go back into paint. And I've got a couple that have done that, and I've fixed them up, and you can hardly even notice them. You know, here's one right here. We had a little nick up in there. You can kind of see it on the inside where the silver is, but not really noticeable unless you're going to look at it. So anyway, so here we have 2 perfect molds, cast resin. So these are still kind of soft. The recommendations on the packaging is to paint them within 10 minutes. I haven't really noticed that really matters when you paint them. So our next step before we get into painting is these ones. I'm out of magnets, so I'm actually going to turn these ones into Velcro backings. So, and I've kind of started on some of them already. So here's some of the Velcros. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the shop, and I'm going to grab my Dremel, and I'm going to cut out, just kind of Dremel out the edges or on the inside, so then we can stick our Velcro in there. And then once that's done, then we'll start getting into our painting. So let's get into the Dremeling. Okay, so welcome to my shop. So here's where I'm actually going to cut out where I'm going to use the put the Velcro in. So what I've done here is I've just got an old scrap piece of wood, and I took a measurement of how deep my Combadge was, and I kind of traced it out, and then I used my Dremel to cut that, because when you do something like that, you're going to need to sort of hold it in place. I kind of didn't cut it, I cut it a little too big, so it does sort of move it around. One thing I do want to mention though is sometimes when you do your resin, you're going to be left with maybe some residual pieces left over. So if that's the case, just use a little X-Acto knife and just gently shave off anything extra. You're going to want to do that before you do your paint. Also, you may just want to do a light sand if you know, if it's a little rough around the edges. This one's not too bad, so I don't have to worry about doing any sanding. Can't find my sander, but oh, there we go. So I just have like a little soft sponge sander, so you can just kind of give it a little rough sand just to kind of take any excess stuff off, and a little bit of a buff. Nice and easy. So okay, here we go. So we'll just kind of set it in here. So what I want to do is I'm going to get as close to the edges as possible, and the Roddenberry edition is like that. I got to put my old man glasses on because make sure that I don't mess anything up. So I've got a nice Dremel here I got for Christmas one year from my parents, and for this project it's actually come in quite handy. So here we go. I've already adjusted the depth because you don't want it to go down too deep, or you'll end up kind of going too far down. You'll cut through the other side. Here's a failed attempt at a magnet. The magnet was set too deep, so when I painted it, it kind of broke through the layer of paint. So that was a failed attempt. This was a failed attempt at painting, I think. I could possibly fix that. I might. So anyways, let's get into this and let's get this cut up. So pretty simple. You need to have a steady hand for this. Kind of blow it because I need to be able to see what I'm doing. You gotta be very careful, nice and slow. Don't do this job too quickly, so you're gonna mess up. And all that work you did was for nothing. So I try to do my outside first. You can't really see what I'm doing, but you'll see but I do my outside edge first, and then I'll hollow it out. So you can see there we got nice. I'm going to try and get a little closer up to the top. Not that it really makes a difference, but the more adhesive, the better. And it jumps around a lot, so you can kind of see on the inside where it's not really flush. And I'll show you that in just a minute. You need to have a really good steady hand for this part. And don't be too much in a hurry. If you get in a hurry, you're just going to mess it up. And you don't want to do that. So there we go. We got one hollowed out Voyager Combadge. So that's going to be your finished product. That's what you're looking for. Whether you use a Velcro, or I may use a good double-sided 3M adhesive tape. That will go in there nicely and stick to some of the costume or whatever they want to put it on quite well. Just gonna kind of tap out this excess stuff. And this one was a little bit thinner, but I think our thickness is going to be fine on that. So, but you know what, just to be err on the side of caution, I'm just going to bring this up a bit so we're not going to cut as deep. I'm going to just kind of eyeball it here. And then we'll just quickly run this one. So just get my initial, yeah, maybe I didn't have it. It's just fine, so I'll just put it back a little bit. Get a cut. Yeah, this one's not cutting as deep, which is fine, because if I'm going to use some 3M tape, the 3M tape's not that thick, but I want the thicker with the adhesive, or with the Velcro, just because Velcro is a little thicker than adhesive. I think I'm gonna have to redo this board. Maybe I'll use a pine or something, because it's kind of hard to do the work when it's just kind of sitting in there. I'm gonna make that a little bit deeper because I'm not quite happy with that. It's too narrow, or it's too shallow. So I'll just kind of. I don't think I really made any adjustment to this. Anyways. There we go, that's a little bit better. A little bit deeper, what I want. Again, don't rush this. Rush it, you're just going to be left with something you can't fix. And I've learned that lesson quite a few times. Okay, so we got that all nice and, we got all that nice and hollowed out. So we got two perfectly good Combadges ready for paint. So let's go in and start our paint. Now, there's two types of paint that you need to use. Here, you can see on this one here, see it's a little thin because I cut it a little too deep. But once we get it painted, you're not going to be able to see it. Oh, and you know what? I found there's a little nick in there. So let's try and get that fixed while we're here. Again, so I just said that I just used kind of a some model glue. So I just open it up, take a little bit of glue out. I usually have a toothpick, but I don't know where my toothpick went. And so I'm just going to kind of stick it on that little nick. And we'll seal that off. Let that dry. And then I'll sand it off. And then we'll be ready for a paint job. So I'll put a little bit of paint on both sides. Or sorry, model glue on both sides. And hopefully we won't be able to see that. So getting back into the paint, so I use two different types of paint. The one paint that I use it's called Perfect Match. This is a Galaxy Silver is what they use, and it's a spray paint. So this is used for GM model, GM vehicles. So I just bought this at an automobile parts store. So just remember Galaxy Silver. And the gold that we're going to use is just a tester's metallic gold, just model paint. So we're going to do it in two stages. First, we're going to do the gold, because we don't want it. Because sometimes before I was doing the silver first, and then I would do the gold. But when I go and do the trims, what was happening is the gold was bleeding down, and then I was having to repaint the silver. So now we're just going to do the gold first. Let that dry. Let it dry, I would say about 24 hours at least. If you live in a really hot environment, you can maybe get away with 12. But 24 hours just to be on the safe side. And then after that's done, we'll mask off the edges, and then we'll do our spray paint for our silver. But we'll get into that after we get the gold painted on. Okay, so now that we've got, I'm only going to do one here because the other one's got to sit and dry with that model paint. So we got our gold Tester's metallic gold paint, and I use a sponge brush. And I used to use just a regular brush, but well, you could see the brush strokes on here. So 1 inch was sort of the smallest that I could find that could do the work that I wanted to do. So I just ended up cutting it off. And unfortunately, by doing that, now I actually have to pour my paint in the lid in order to access it. So I am going to paint both sides, but for now I'm just going to do the one side, and I'll be able to put on some more paint when this is done. So very simple. Just soak your brush up with that, and most of you probably already know how to paint. If you see any bubbles forming on there, pop them, because when it dries, the bubbles will stay on there, and then you're going to have a not so good look to it. So blah, blah, blah. Paint, I don't have to worry about being too neat, but I do want to get a good coat of paint on there. I'll use a brush later on to get in between the badge, or through the wings on the Delta shield. And the Combadge, I think Delta shield's what they call that in the original Star Trek series. And these ones are just called Combadges. So as you get around, it gets a little harder. So now I actually got to hold my fingers in the center there, and that'll help you get around and do the rest of it. So this isn't a very time-consuming process, but I do like to do a couple of coats. And then when I'm done, see, with my Roddenberry one that I had, I was having problems with the paint was coming off. It wasn't really coming off, it was just getting a little thin. So I contacted the Roddenberry, which they contacted the manufacturer, and they said, oh, Tester's gold, just put it on there. But it kept happening. And you know what? It was just a real pain in the you-know-what to have to keep repainting it all the time. So I found a clear coat protector. If you're going to do that, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've tried it. I tried it on some of these reproductions first, and make sure you use a matte finish. Don't use a gloss, as it'll just make it really shiny. And you know, I haven't had any issues with it. So go ahead and do that if you don't want to be having to repaint your Combadge constantly. And you can probably see here, you see some gold paint that's kind of got in the center, and this is the reason why I'm now doing the gold first, because it will get into your project and cause you to have to repaint the silver. And it's not that it's really expensive. All costs in. I got the mold kit at Michael's, and I used a 50% off coupon. So you know, that was like $18. The resin is the same cost, so that was another $18. The paints I've been getting with 40% off coupons, so it hasn't really cost me that much. But the auto paint, that was probably the most expensive paint that I've had to purchase, and that was $17 for a can. If you use it right and sparingly, it'll last you a long time. I got a hair in there, probably from my cat. So there you go. There's my first coat of paint, and I'm pretty happy with this. So we'll let this dry, and then we'll come back, and I'll put another coat on it, but I'm not going to show you guys putting another second coat on. Then I'll show you what I do to mask it, mask the outside before we put on how we put the silver coat on. And then once I've got the front completely done, then I'll go and I'll paint the back gold, and then we'll do the final touch, and that'll be with the clear coat matte finish to protect our item. So there we go. So we have our gold painted Combadge waiting for the silver. So there we go. We'll come back in a bit, and another 24 hours, and we'll put on our next coat of paint. Okay, so we're back here, and I'm ready for the silver paint job on these. So I went ahead and I've finished up that other one that, remember, we had the little bit of the nick in there. So that's been fixed. I've sanded that off. I've painted the backs on these already. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do the mask so we can start doing the paint. So what I do on this one here is I put a little bit of sticky tape on here just to kind of hold them in place. Because sometimes I have to hold the board up, and just to get an even spray. So what I do to mask it is I grab some painter's tape, and this is about a 1.5 inch tape roll. So I'll cut 2 of these out, and you want to hold it really tight and just put it right over the center, just like so. And you're going to do that for the other one, or I'm going to do that for the other one. You may only do one if you want to make these, but for this one we'll do both. And then I'm going to put another little piece over there to protect the paint. So I just using a little X-Acto knife here, and what I want to do, just on the you can see on these badges here, you want to take your X-Acto knife and you want to just kind of trim just on the inside, not on the outside, because then you're going to end up spray painting the silver on where it's supposed to be gold. And my magnet fell out of my other one. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just kind of cut this out. And don't go too fast. Don't worry about scratching your resin piece here. There, we got the first one cut out. So we'll pull this one off, hopefully. Anything excess, you don't want anything to get into the way of your paint. Otherwise you're going to have a bad paint job. So then again, I'll do that same thing for the second one. I think my blade's getting a little dull. Who knew a blade could get dull from cutting tape? Kind of retarded. Oh well. So we're just about done this project. So this is the final paint stage. And then if I need anything touched up at the end, then I'll just do that with a paintbrush. So you want to mask off anything that's exposed or could potentially be exposed to the silver, because you don't want to run into your gold. I was using gold spray paint for a little while, and it works, but I found that the sponge brush worked better for me. So okay, so here we go. We're ready to go. So again, I've got my perfect match GM. What is it? What did I say it was? Galaxy Silver. So to get an even flow, you don't spray it too close, or you're gonna end up with a really bad product or spray job. Kind of stay away from it. Go evenly. Don't stop. Here, I'm gonna tilt it up a little bit, and then just back and forth. Just even spray. That's about it. Now, really important, you don't want this tape to stay on your badge, because it will cause some problems on your gold paint job. So when you're done, remove this as quickly as possible so you don't get any of that silver paint on the gold. Keep your masks aside, because if you do have to do a quick touch-up, then you can just put it over top, because it still stays sticky, and then you can just do a quick light spray. And then once this is done, I'm going to use this this spray lacquer, and this is a matte gloss, or sorry, a matte what do we call it? Clear coat protector. So matte. Like once again, if you use the glossy, it's going to leave a bit of a shine. You probably don't want to shine on that. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll do a clear coat on there. I'm not going to go into too much into that. I'll just do that, and I'll put some. I'm going to put some adhesive backing on it, not Velcro, but I'll use that super strong tape stuff instead of Velcro, and I'll show you guys the final result when these things are all done. Okay, so we are now finished our project, and I have here 2 complete Combadges. And you can see I've already applied the clear coat matte protector on it, and I've done that on both of them. That's to just kind of protect the finish. So using the model paint, if it's really hot, your hands are warm or anything, you go to touch it, the paint will transfer onto your fingers. So that just prevents that from happening. I did do 2 coats of silver on there. It did require a second one. Once again, the backs are fully painted. I did put on, instead of Velcro, these ones I've just put it on a double-sided adhesive tape. This is really strong 3M. It's like mounting tape. So just peel off the back, put it on your shirt or your uniform, press and hold, and it should last you for about 10 or 15 applications. So that's it. A really fun project. I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I've had a lot of fun creating this do-it-yourself video, and hopefully some of you can have some luck and create your own badges. If you're not so inclined or talented in the craft area and you wish to purchase one of these, I do sell these. $20 US complete, and that includes shipping. And I ship usually within Canada and the United States. But if you want some more information on that, just send me a private message, and we'll be in touch, and I'll let you know how we can get one of these to you if you are so inclined. So that's it. So if you wish to subscribe to my channel, just hit that subscribe button and you'll get notifications when I post a new video. Hit that like button. Your comments below would be really appreciated. And I'm going to put a link. I'm going to try and find all the products that I used for this project, and I'll add those links as well for you, so you can go and figure out what you need. You may not use the same stuff if you can't find it, or you can find something similar.
I did all my shopping at Michael's, a craft store. That's where I got everything. So that's it. So thanks again for watching, and till the next video, take care.